You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm really excited to be here today with Alana Van Der Sluys. Alana is an intuitive eating coach, author, speaker, and founder of Freedom with Food and Fitness, an online support community that helps women to quit dieting forever, ditch diet mentality, love their bodies, stop feeling crazy around food, and reclaim a love of fitness and movement. Oh my gosh, this is the perfect time to be talking to you because you guys won't know this, but it's right before Thanksgiving. And I mean, come on, we all splurge on Thanksgiving, even though we try not to. So I'm super excited that you're here with us today, Alana.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
One of the things we ask all of our guests to do is share a story of hope, because the whole premises for Oh My Health, There Is Hope is to share stories of hope with others and get them through that journey or let them know there's always hope. So do you want to share your story with us today?
Absolutely. So I ended up with 3 different eating disorders later in life than the average person. In my early 20s, I developed binge eating disorder, orthorexia, and body dysmorphia. And I struggled with it for about 5 years, and I felt like I could never get out of it. And I was too proud to go to therapy, which I never recommend. But I armed myself with all of these podcasts by wonderful, wonderful women and experts about weight neutrality and body positivity and health at every size and body liberation and all these wonderful movements, these feminist, primarily feminist movements. And I read all these books and I did all this research. And even though I didn't go to therapy and I didn't have what we would call professional help, I was able to fully recover from that. So that is to say, I would always recommend professional help. But if you're somebody who doesn't feel like they have the time for a therapist or a dietitian or can't afford those things, there's still hope to recover on your own using, grit and the internet and just all these wonderful free available resources for you and the wonderful community that is on Instagram and is growing on Instagram. So there is hope for recovery regardless of professional help.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about, so the average woman that's listening right now who may be struggling with eating disorders. And by the way, that can be looks so different to so many people. You may feel like there's something wrong and other people no, that's normal. But I'm telling you, listen to yourself. And if it feels like something's off for you, then definitely there's so many resources online. There's so many resources if you can't afford to get what they would call structured or help through a therapist or a dietitian. There's so many groups you can join, communities, books you can read. There's always hope. But what does that look like, do you think, for the average person who's wondering, is this something I should be worried about? Is this something that can affect my health or maybe even affect the beautiful children we're raising when they see us in this cycle?
You just said a mouthful. It looks different for a lot of women, and you're right. A lot of women simply think that dieting is a normal thing because that's what we always see in the media. That's what, all of our, the females in our lives are doing. So it just seems normal. But, from an intuitive eating standpoint, from a coach perspective, any rules or restrictions that you have around food is considered disordered. And yes, there is a difference between having an eating disorder. You need to hit some criteria on the DSM-5 to diagnose yourself or be diagnosed with a quote unquote eating disorder. But there is something to be said about just disordered eating. And that could be everything from weighing yourself to counting calories, to counting macros, to having food rules like not eating past 7 p.m. or not having dairy because it's bad, or, only clean eating and things like that. That's all disordered. And we say it's disordered because we are restricting our bodies and we're not listening to our biological innate cues. We're not eating when we're hungry or stopping when we're full. We're eating when the intermittent fasting diet we're on is telling us to, or what, this Instagram, diet guru is telling us to do. So anything that's not just listening to our own bodies and what they need, we would consider disordered. So yeah, I think if anybody is following a structured diet or is trying not to eat even though they're hungry, that's all diet culture. And as you said, for those of us that have children, I have a son, he's only 16 months old. It's a little bit easier with boys, but it's still actually an issue with men. Men can have eating disorders. Like you said, it doesn't look like the wayfish girl all the time. A lot of people who are overweight or obese, I hate that word, but that's what they're categorized as, they can have eating disorders. There's this stigma that people in bigger bodies are in bigger bodies because they eat too much. And that's not the case. A lot of people in bigger bodies have eating disorders. So when they go to the doctor and they have some sort of ailment or sickness and the doctor tells them, well, you need to lose weight, that's so triggering for them because they already have this disordered eating behavior. And this can stem into, what our children see. Even if we're not putting our children on diets, if they see us on diets or talking negatively about our own bodies, they think, oh, wow, well, if there's something wrong with mommy's body, maybe there's something wrong with my body. Maybe I should be dieting the way mommy's dieting, or, and they mimic behavior too. If you're in the mirror pinching the fat on your stomach, your daughter might see that and start doing the same thing to her body in the mirror. And that's crushing for not only the child, but that's crushing as a parent to see as well.
100%. And one of the things when we're talking about when we're raising our kids, some of the things that I realized as a child growing up that my mom did was she always dished out our plates, right? And then we had to finish what was on our plates. And so maybe it was too much for me. Maybe I ate later, right? But I still have this thing in my head that I have to finish what's on my plate. What I have gotten used to, nobody dishes my plate anymore, unless I go, of course, to a restaurant or something. But I know like I can go back if I'm still hungry. And usually after I've eaten that, if I'm talking, I have I realize I'm full, but it takes our body at like 20 minutes to give your brain that signal that I'm sated, I'm full. So if we're eating so fast within that 20 minutes, we don't get that full signal. So now I just dish up something smaller. I try with my kids when they were younger, if they said, I'm full, to say, okay, and know that it's okay to leave food on your plate, right? And walk away. Sometimes it was because they didn't like it. And I'd be like, okay, but that's all there is for right now. Like you're going to have to wait until snack or whatever. And if they were okay with that, I was okay with that because they had freedom of choice. So there are things we do that we don't even realize. Like our kids hate vegetables because why? We push them on them, right? We force it on them and they don't want what we're forcing. But if we're giving them those options to choose from a very young age, it becomes a habit, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you treat all foods the same, kids aren't going to know that the broccoli is good and the brownie is bad. And anything that's labeled bad, it's like rebellious, it's lucrative. And that's what kids do. They test boundaries. They want to be a little rebellious. So that's all they're going to want if you say that they can't have it. And that goes for people, right? If I say, don't think about a red car, the first thing that popped in your head just now was a red car. Like, of course, we're going to be thinking about it. I'm not a dietitian for children, but, I have a child and I have friends that have children. And one of my friends said that she spoke to a dietitian and said, serve for children, serve the dessert with the meal. And chances are, yes, they will eat the dessert first, but they will, if they're still hungry, eat the meal as well. And they end up really most of the time eating all the foods on the plate, but not praising the broccoli over anything else. So if my toddler, sometimes all he wants is the broccoli. Sometimes he throws the broccoli on the floor and all he wants are those little crunchy puffs. And I have to, like, as you said, hold myself back from telling him, no, you can't just have that because X, Y, Z. He's like, no, if that's what his body wants, maybe he's just a little carb machine energy factory right now. He needs carb. So, you try not to judge and you let them do their thing and they'll figure it out.
So one of the other things, and I don't even know, I guess you would still qualify this as a disorder because it has to do with eating, is that we tend to, when we're raising our kids, to teach them to eat their emotions, right? If they do something good, we reward them with an ice cream. If they're sad, we reward them with this. If there's a holiday, there's tons of foods, right? And I find that connecting those emotions instead of connecting food as fuel for the body is what makes it work, goes on into our adulthood. So we have a breakup, like on every movie I've ever seen, they have a breakup or they had a bad day, they go get a half gallon of ice cream and they're standing there talking and eating it, or a glass of wine, right? And they're with their friends. So it's really hard to separate those emotions from what our body actually needs. Do you have any like insight on how people can start creating that change?
Yes. So, and I'll start it with the caveat that it's okay to sometimes emotionally eat, like as long as you understand that that is what you're doing and that you are intentional in having that glass of wine be the way that you relax for the Friday night. That's totally fine. But I do suggest that you have other coping mechanisms available to you. So if you feel like you're somebody that doesn't, that's something to definitely look into. Definitely look into different modes of self-care, right? There's physical self-care, social, emotional, spiritual self-care, practical self-care, even making to-do lists, like practical self-care, that can be a form. Carving out time for yourself, even if that means literally blocking it into your, Google Calendar, just having that time to decompress will make you not feel so overwhelmed by everything that you have to do or everything that you're thinking. Another thing is just knowing that negative emotions aren't bad. They're not bad. They are tools that we can use to figure out and diagnose what is bothering us. So if I'm feeling very anxious, instead of trying to push that emotion down and pretend I'm not anxious, I should really sit with that feeling for a couple of minutes and say, okay, well, why am I anxious? What's going on? What might make me feel better? If it's food, great, but chances are it's not. It's fixing whatever is making me anxious. So knowing that it's okay to sit with negative emotions sometimes, to maybe even do a visualization practice, visualize what that emotion is, like maybe give it a color, maybe make it look like a little avatar in your head and speak to it and say, okay, I see you. What do you want? What do you need me to do for you?
A lot of time when those emotions come up, we just need to acknowledge that they're there. And so when you create that space and make it something tangible and you're able to like literally speak to it, it starts to fade away because you're acknowledging it, right? And you're addressing whatever that issue that's drawing that up. So that's an amazing solution. So for me, and eating disorders, I created my massive eating disorder in my 50s, but it was because I had my stomach removed and I had to think so much about what I ate and like be so prepared and and then everybody else around me, what do you eat? How do we help? What do we get for you? Like, what should we serve? And my whole process from morning to night became thinking about food. What can I eat? Where can I eat? How much can I eat? Like, what does that look like for me? And I got over it really quickly. It was a lot. And to the point where like, don't ask, you feed yourself, I'll feed myself. Don't worry about me. Wherever we go, I can find something to eat. But it became such this anxious thing. Like food became anxiety to me because of the whole situation around it and people just trying to help, right? And they're just trying to help. But everything I talked about was food, everything. And I couldn't eat it, which was weird that my whole life was revolving around food when I really couldn't take it that much because I had to have my stomach removed. So having said that, food became super, like I literally would break in hives thinking about dinner. Like it was a lot because of creating that anxiety around what can I eat? How much of it can I eat? Like, what does that look like? Are my bodies getting those nutrients? And when I decided to get rid of that and just not think about food anymore, I made sure I just had a lot of options that I knew were good for me around the house all the time. So that when I go to eat and my body says, you're hungry, go get something. I go and the small one's set up or something over here is set up and I don't even have to think about it anymore. I have to think about it one day when I go to the store. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
One day. So it's been crazy for me. So like you develop these things at any stage in your life. you can address them also at any stage. And if I wasn't in this beautiful field that I'm in now, I would not have even known, I wouldn't even recognize it as a problem. I wouldn't have known that that's where that anxiety was coming from. I wouldn't have known why that was happening. And so when you're addressing, and it's usually, like you said, it's mostly women that deal with this. And I don't know why it's so much women. I don't know if they're so aware of what's on the outside, like body image, and like guys just don't seem to have that issue. But if you're talking to women who are coming up and saying, I think I have a food eating disorder, there are some that you can literally die from. Some people restrict anything they're eating to almost nothing. Some people overeat and then release, and overeat and release, right? They're bulimic. There's things that you can do that will shorten your lifespan, right? And affect your body in ways that even if you break that cycle, if you stay in it way too long, you can't repair all the damage you're doing to yourself. So what are some of the cue things that people can listen to start taking that one small step towards getting healthier?
You mean like other resources that they can check
Right.
out?
So if like, say I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, wow, maybe I'm having a problem. Like I do restrict my food. I only eat once a day, and it has to be 1,000 calories or under 1,000 calories for the whole day. And, it's hard to do that. And am I affecting my body? What's the one thing that I can do to start building that healthier relationship around food? And for anyone who's listening, it isn't your fault. There is so much craziness around food right now. Like first it's really good for you, and then it's going to kill you, and they take it off the shelves. Then you have to have a ton of this and you can't eat any of it. The egg thing that went out, like nobody wanted to eat eggs. Then all of a sudden eggs are good, but no, it's just the egg whites. There's so much going on in your brain. This is not your fault. But if you can just recognize something's not right with the way I'm eating, and how do I start building that healthier relationship? So I think maybe that would be a really good thing for you to answer for them. The one thing they can do, or go a place they can go, or something they can get to start that very first step with creating a better relationship with food.
I would say one thing to do is definitely start listening to more podcasts there and go on Instagram. Those are like the two places where intuitive eating seems to be growing exponentially. So podcasts would be the Dear Body podcast with Jessie Jean, How to Love Your Body with Lauren McCulley and Jenna Free really helped me. Another one that really helped me was Christy Harrison's Food Psych was a great one. And then there are so many intuitive eating and body positivity accounts on Instagram, like my own with Freedom with Food and Fitness, that really help out a lot. The other thing that people can do if they want to do something a little more analog, something that's just a strategy, is play the why game. So what I say is that your issues with food, your struggles with food and your body and your weight, those struggles, it's not actually about the food. Your problem isn't actually the food. The problem isn't actually your body, and it's not actually your weight. It's a deeper internal issue that's manifesting itself into this. So I say that you're looking for a salve, like an ointment we would put on a wound. You're looking for either S for safety, A for acceptance, L for love, or V for validation. And the E is, I say, validation. Typically, we try to seek external validation, which isn't really great. We need to cultivate more inner validation. So again, it's safety, acceptance, love, and validation. Those are the four core things we need as human beings to be happy. And if we don't feel safe because we're in a larger body, or we're in a larger body and we feel if we're not in a thinner body, we won't be loved or accepted, that's where those issues start to come from. So I say play the why game. So for example, if you tell me, oh, Alana, I just want to lose 15 pounds. Well, why do you want to lose those 15 pounds? Well, because I want to feel sexy. Well, why would you only feel sexy if you're in a smaller body? And then it's, well, because that's what we see in society. And it's like, okay, so why are you trying to fit into society's version of sexy? And you just keep drilling it down and down. And eventually you're going to see that your issue isn't really with your weight or your body. It's salve, or it's an issue with control or lack of coping mechanisms, or it's something else. And it's usually something internal.
By the way, we call that chunking down in NLP, and it is a great way to get to the root of what's going on. And you just keep why, and going deeper and deeper. And finally, you'll find yourself circling a little bit, like saying the same thing. But when you start saying the same thing, those are kind of the keys that are popping up. So I love that you play the why game. And I think it's a great thing for you to start doing at home. Alana, I definitely want to talk about Finally Free, your new book that you'll be having come out. Tell us a little bit about it and who's it for?
Sure. So the book is for anybody who feels like this might be an issue for them, that they're just sick of dieting, sick of feeling crazy around food, sick of fighting their body and fighting the scale, and they want to look into intuitive eating, or at least the strategies that surround intuitive eating, and incorporate fitness as well, because that's something that's wonderful for our bodies. But again, like anything else, it can be disordered and used as a way to quote unquote earn food or punish ourselves for having a donut or any of these things. So if you want to like reclaim a love of fitness again, the book is really great for that. The book is called Finally Free, and it's a little bit of a memoir of my own journey through disordered eating and through recovery. It has a lot of actionable strategies along the way. It's, lots of research that backs a lot of the things that I say. It's a workbook as well. So it has pages where you can do, journal reflections and quizzes and assessments for yourself, and templates for things like workouts, and, a grocery list so you can come up with flexible meal plans throughout the week instead of these like very rigid ones that diets love to give you. So it's interactive, tons of really actionable and easy to implement strategies. And, I'm so excited for this to finally get out there to everybody, but, we're still looking for either a literary agent or a publisher to sweep it up and take a chance on it.
I love that. I'm super excited for that to come out. And when it comes out, we will definitely help you promote that, because I think it's such a powerful message to people, because we have to eat. It's not like we can stop drinking or stop smoking. You have to eat. You can't stop eating. So when we're trying to create that healthy habits and healthy routines and like a healthy relationship with food, it's hard because you have to eat. So you can't just say, well, it's a bad habit, I'm just going to stop eating altogether. It would be challenging. I also want to talk about your program you have coming out this summer.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So yeah, it's called, I'm still creating it now. I haven't even really officially promoted it on the Instagram yet, but I've talked about it a couple of times here and there. It's called Sane Girl Summer, and it's based off that song that came out last summer. I think it was called Hot Girl Summer, and Sane Girl Summer was my way to kind of like rebel against this idea of the bikini body and getting summer ready and all this garbage that we hear that, diet culture promotes to get ready for summer. So it's a 10-week program. It's going to be a small group of ladies, and we're going to meet once a week as a group online, and I'm going to give them, just a theme for the week, a bunch of research and things to consider, strategies to use. Throughout the week, they'll have resources that they have to, be accountable for. There's going to be probably a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, where they can ask questions and interact with each other and me throughout the week and keep ourselves accountable. I'm going to give them guided meditations to kind of center themselves throughout the week. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. We're just going to have a blast.
I so love that you're doing this. This is what I call a holistic approach to eating, or a holistic approach to creating a new habit or a beautiful lifestyle, because it's whole. You can't just change the way you're eating and not the way you're moving. You can't just change the way you're moving and not maybe your spiritual, feeding you your spiritual side or the meditation side. It's when you do all of it together in very small steps, it makes the biggest change in your world. So I love that you're combining all of these things to help women create a better habit, a better life, and start thriving instead of what we call diet. By the way, for those of you who don't know what the word diet means, it simply means what we put in our mouth. It was only because of the marketing ploy when people realized if we attach diet to this and this and this and tell women they're going to look gorgeous if they do A, B, and C, we're going to make billions of dollars. And we fell for it. I know I've fallen into one of those diet traps. So I'm pretty sure you guys can say I'm probably more than one, actually. And they were never very successful for me. What was successful for me is when I paid attention to the whole, the holistic side, everything, and took those little steps to, create that thriving lifestyle. So when do you think you're going to be launching your program so other women can be a part of that community?
The end of June. So I'm gonna start having, it's gonna be end of June to the end of August. So it's gonna be all summer long, so we can keep ourselves accountable all summer long. I'm gonna start probably promoting for it and doing free webinars to kind of talk about what it's all gonna be about, probably April and May.
Perfect. So all of you guys are going to want to look for that. And this, by the way, releases in about 8 weeks from when we're together now. So we could even promote it on there. I just put a little note so we remember. Where can people connect with you, Alana?
So I'm most active on Instagram at Freedom with Food and Fitness. I have a website, freedomwithfoodandfitness.com. The link in my bio on Instagram is a link tree. So it has literally everything I offer, from free quizzes to free resources, including recipes, my favorite recipes. I have 2 evergreen online courses. I have guided meditations. I have published articles in all sorts of places that have to do with intuitive eating. So it's all there.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to put all of those links in here so you can connect very quickly. The only thing we won't have is the Sane Girl Summer program and the link to our book. But the minute we do get those, we'll go back and add them and make sure that you guys all have access to them. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.